We are pleased to have tonight as our speaker, Glen Leibowitz, who is head of marketing and communications in Greater China for the global consulting firm McKinsey & Company. He's been with McKinsey for more than 25 years. And last year, Glen served as interim CEO of the Jeffrey D. Schwartz and Tang Jewish Taiwan Cultural Association. As you'll hear, this is a nonprofit organization that built a brand new Jewish community center, which opened in January of 2022. Glen lives in Taipei with his wife and daughter, and his son lives in Boston. And with that, we welcome Glen. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Udi. Hello, everyone. Good evening. It's actually morning over here in Taipei, but good evening, everyone. Did you just watch the movie?
Well, they've been screening it in the preceding weeks.
Oh, I see.
Right.
Good.
And
good.
so, yeah, perhaps you can, well, maybe why don't you start a little bit about how you ended up in Taipei, and then we can talk about how accurate the movie is or what you thought of it.
Sure. I'll just give a little bit of an introduction to myself and how the heck a kid from Fort Lauderdale, Florida, ended up in Taipei, Taiwan. A lot of people have asked me that over the years. So I'll try to cut 35 years short into maybe hopefully like 30 seconds. Let's see how I do. I was born and raised in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. My parents are from Pittsburgh. My father's from Squirrel Hill, a large Jewish community there. He went to Alderdice High School. Anyway, I'm from Fort Lauderdale. I somehow fell in love with the Chinese language, and I studied Asian studies at Cornell as an undergrad, and then at Yale as a graduate student. And then I came to Taiwan, and I've been here ever since. So I came to Taiwan in the summer of 90, came back in 91. And then I went back to the US for my MBA at Wharton. So I was in Philly for 2 years. And I was in, my wife is, I met her at Yale. She's actually a cellist from Juilliard and Yale. And she's originally from Taiwan, but she was in the US for 10 years at Juilliard and Yale. And yeah, I built my family, my career here entirely in Taiwan. I work at McKinsey, which is a consulting firm. You may have heard of them. We've been in the news lately. And I've been at McKinsey for 25 and a half years, entirely in Taiwan and Shanghai. I actually lived in Shanghai with my family for 5 years, and then we moved back to Taipei. But my career has been in Greater China. I lead the communications and marketing team in Greater China for McKinsey, which means I help them sort of bring in business and build their profiles. So that's what I do during the day. But I got about 13, 14 years ago, I became very active in the Jewish community here in Taiwan. And I became a lay leader, if that's what you call it, not a rabbi by any means. And a couple of years ago, I started to get involved with this new initiative led by Jeffrey D. Schwartz, who is a businessman here in Taiwan. He's from Ohio, and he moved to Taiwan 51 years ago. Wow. And he built a very, very successful business, making a lot of the products that you may have seen at Target or Walmart or Dollar Tree and other stores like that. He sells millions of different products every year to the US that he makes here in Asia. And he decided, he thought that why don't we have a permanent Jewish community center here in Taiwan? So he decided to build it. So that's exactly what he and his wife Tang did. They decided hired an architect and a designer, and we opened the JCC, the first permanent JCC, in January of last year. And I got involved in helping with the communications, with the organization, with membership. And I did that for about a year. And then I stepped away from that just to refocus on my job and my family. But I'm still active in the community. So that's the quick snapshot of what I'm doing here and why I'm involved with this amazing effort, actually. And I can tell you more about it, but I'd also be happy to tell you about the Jewish community in Taiwan. Right. Tell you about Taiwan if you're interested about Taiwan. Whatever you want, ask me anything, almost anything.
So this is a good point. First of all, this is a point to perhaps we'll test the audience's guess of how many Jews are in Taiwan, and then and then we will invite you also to either put your questions in the chat or just kind of raise your hand and let's make this interactive. So first, let's ask you, How many Jews do you think are in Taiwan? 300, 800, 1,500, or 3,000? Give it your best shot, and then I don't even know the correct answer. Glenn will address it when people have voted. Okay, we got everyone answering. This is great. Okay. Most people thought 1,500, 44%. And the answer?
And the answer is, I actually often give two answers. One answer I usually give just because, people need a number. So I usually say 800. But the reason why I'm caveating that is because no one really knows. So there are actually two correct answers here. If you said 800, it's sort of correct, and that's the standard answer that I provide and others provide. But we actually really do not know because we've never done a census. But the reality is it's definitely more than 300. It's nowhere near 3,000, and it's almost certainly not 1,500. So no one. The real answer is no one really knows. I don't even know, but it's very small, but it's sizable enough that we have a very active community, and we actually have two sort of I'll call it two branches to the community. So I don't know if you've heard the joke. I'm not able to relate the joke correctly, but there's a joke around a guy ends up on a deserted island, and he said, where's the synagogue? And he said, well, there's one there's the one that I go to, there's the one I'd never step foot in. This is deserted island. We literally live on an island. It's not deserted, but it's an island called Taiwan, and we do have two synagogues. So very much like the joke, but so yeah, it's a vibrant community, and that's the answer.
What are the two synagogues?
Yeah, so we have the Jeffrey D. Schwartz Jewish Community Center. That's the new synagogue. That's the new JCC, which includes, we have a shul, we have a synagogue, we have a kosher restaurant, we have a ballroom for events, and we have a museum, and we have a kindergarten. So that's the Jeffrey D. Schwartz Jewish Community Center. There's also the Taiwan Jewish community, and they are another sort of branch of the community, and I've been involved with them as well. I was on the board for a couple of years. I'm friends with the leadership there. I was very active, and I could tell you a little bit more about that community. I was active with them for many, many years. I could tell you about the rabbi who led that community for 30 some years, 40 years, Rabbi Einhorn, and I'll show you a photo of him in a minute. But we are getting together for Purim in the JCC, our new JCC. So we're bringing everybody together next week. And happy Purim, by the way, before I forget. Chag Sameach.
Chag Sameach.
So yeah.
How do the synagogues differ in their perspective, level of observance, or?
Yeah, it's complicated, but what I would say just very simply is we have a Chabad rabbi in the JCC, and the other branch of the community, the Rabbi Einhorn, I'll show you a photo in a minute. He passed away at 103 on Erev Yom Kippur. Wow. In 2021. So he passed away a couple of years ago, and they, I think, are still in a search process for a rabbi. They had a chazan for a couple of years in the interim. So yeah, they are more reform, maybe / conservative. In terms of observance for the JCC, it's all over the place. but the rabbi, who leads services is from Chabad. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And where did these Jews come from? How'd they get to Taiwan?
No, that's a great question, Udi. Everywhere, it's quite global, but a lot of them are from the U.S. Some of them are businessmen. Some people have been here for 30 some years, like myself. I've been in Taiwan for over 30 years, some 40 or 50 years, like Jeffrey Schwartz. Some people have come here for students. There's students from Oxford and Cambridge, or from the U.S., colleges in the U.S. for a year to study Chinese. There are students from Israel, so there are a lot of students. A lot of young Israelis who've just sort of gotten out of the army and, want to travel. It's a real mixed, I would say a diverse community. It skews young, I would say 20, 30, 40 years old. We don't have sort of, that many established families who've been here for 30, 40, 50 years. With, there are a handful of them.
Sounds like more like young expats.
Exactly, right. Young to middle-age expats.
So who are the wealthy donors that help Argentinian synagogues?
If they had asked Mr. Schwartz, they might have saved their synagogue in Argentina, because he has, he funded this entire effort, very generously. And of course, he has some donors who are helping out and providing donations. Since opening, he's attracted a number of generous donors, but he overwhelmingly funded this entirely out of his own finances, own funds, along with his wife. So he and his wife have paid for the entire. It's about 20 million US dollars to take an existing structure and completely gut it and rebuild it. And I can show you. I don't know.
Yeah, why don't you give us a tour? Yeah, why don't you give us a tour?
Okay, let me close the poll. Let me. Let's see. I'm going to do some screen sharing. By the way, because people are going to work now in Taiwan, it's 9 a.m. If the signal goes out, just please bear with me. It'll come back, and if it doesn't come back, I've got my iPhone with 5G, so I'm on my home Wi-Fi at the moment. But let me switch screens here. Let me see if you can share. See this? Can you see Rabbi Einhorn on my screen? Good. Yep. Just very, very briefly, I'm gonna start with him because he was a pillar of the community, the Jewish community. This is Rabbi Dr. E.F. Einhorn, Ephraim Ferdinand Einhorn. He was born in Vienna, and his parents were tragically murdered in the Holocaust. And he came to Taiwan in the 70s, and he established a small community. He was a businessman, but he was also a rabbi. He was an ordained rabbi. He was ordained at Etz Chaim in London, which I think is no longer around. It's a yeshiva in London. He studied in Israel and Italy. His brothers and sisters all survived. His brothers and sisters all survived the Holocaust. They were all outside of Austria at the time. And anyway, he came to Taiwan in the 70s, and he was the rabbi for the community for many, many years. And we were very close to him. And he passed away, like I said, on Erev Yom Kippur. So start with Rabbi Einhorn. But what we dedicated a library to him in the synagogue. We have a library in the synagogue, which we dedicated to him last year. This is Mr. Schwartz, and this is on the left is his widow. His first wife was Israeli, and he had a family with her. And then this is his second wife, Eugenia, and this is at the dedication ceremony last November. That's that's the synagogue. Can you see that?
Yep.
Okay, great. I always do that. I get a little paranoid to whether the tech is working. That's our synagogue. That's the synagogue, brand new. And that's the dedication ceremony for the Dr. E.F. Einhorn Memorial Library. That's Jeffrey Schwartz giving a talk. That's the synagogue. That's the outside. So it's on the roof of the building. So that's the Schwartz Synagogue.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful. The mosaic that you see in front was handcrafted in Lebanon. Lebanon. Really? And other yes, and the other tiles surrounding that I think were made in Morocco at these very traditional factories, Morocco and Lebanon. So a lot of handcrafted, custom-made materials. All right, so that's that. Let me see if I switch to, can you see the website?
Yes.
Great. Okay. You could go to the website yourself, obviously, but I'll just run through very quickly. Let's see if it'll work. So that's the ballroom. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Great. We have our events, our holiday events there. It's brand new, gorgeous ballroom. That's the the waiting area in the front. This is the synagogue. Some photos of the synagogue. Here's the kosher culinary lab. No photos of food there, but that's the restaurant. This is sort of more of a, and this is the opening ceremony with the vice president of Taiwan and the mayor of Taipei, standing next to Mr. Schwartz, Jeffrey Schwartz, and his wife. That's Tang on the left, his wife. She is a famous actress and singer and author. That painting on the right is a custom mural by a Chilean Jewish artist who lives in Aventura, Florida now. And it depicts some scenes from the Bible. This is the mikveh. Wow. It's a beautiful, beautiful mikveh. These photos may not even do justice to it. It's just absolutely gorgeous. And the story, what's interesting, just very briefly, the story of this, the origin story of the JCC, of this JCC, is the Rabbi Shlomi, approached Jeffrey Schwartz and said, I need a mikveh. And, Mr. Schwartz said, well, how many Jewish women are going to be using it? There aren't a lot of Jewish women in Taiwan, observant Jewish women who need the mikveh. And, he said, why not just build a JCC? Let's build the whole center. So it went from a relatively small ask for a mikveh to the entire JCC, which is, it's 4 floors, and it's a palace essentially. It's beautiful, and we welcome you. This is the kindergarten. This is managed by the rabbi's wife, Racheli. She's from Israel. They're both from Israel. And then we have a beautiful museum, and I don't know why we don't have photos right here, and I'll show you in a minute. But we have, here. Can you see this photo?
Yep.
This is Mr. Schwartz introducing the painting. He's been collecting Judaica and Jewish art for many decades, and he didn't really have a place to exhibit them or display them or put them together. So he created a museum out of using the wall space throughout the JCC. It's an incredible museum. That's the mikveh. That's a Marc Chagall print. This is just an enormous number. He's got a number of Torah scrolls, ancient, old Torah scrolls that are in this glass case from Tunisia and Israel and India. As you can see. Beautiful. Can you see? Okay. Yeah. So it's just a beautiful museum. So we provide tours, and then you can have a glatt kosher meal at the kosher culinary lab. It is under the strict supervision of Rabbi Shlomi, and everything is strictly kosher. There's kosher beef that he imported from Paraguay. The rabbi from Israel flew to Paraguay to certify it. Anyway, you get the point. It took
a little effort, though. I mean, that's
yes, exactly. So that's the I'm just sort of flipping through the the Facebook pages that you can, again, I welcome you to take a look. This is the chief rabbi of Israel, David Lau. He was here 2 weeks ago for the dedication ceremony. They're giving a print of that painting that's on the wall, the mural, right? That's Rabbi Shlomi. That's his wife. And I could go, they had a conference of Chabad rabbis from all around Asia flew in to Taiwan and for their conference. This is unprecedented. They would have never been able to do this, without this center. They had a place to, have kosher meals, and we had an official dedication ceremony and party, and everyone was, dancing, hand in hand and with everybody. So that was quite remarkable event 2 weeks ago.
Does the community center do you have figures on the membership? How how many people it serves?
Yeah, it's I think in terms of membership, it's a couple hundred, growing. The JCC serves the Jewish community, but it's also very, very much oriented towards the Taiwan community. So this is really about raising awareness, deepening understanding of Jewish life, Jewish culture, Judaism, Jewish history, and for the Taiwanese. So that's actually one of the that's right up at the very top of the the objectives or goals of the JCC and of the JTCA. The JTCA is the Jewish Taiwan Cultural Association. That's the umbrella nonprofit organization that runs and operates owns the JCC, the Jewish Community Center.
So what's your sense of the attitude or well, Ellen, you want to finish the tour? Or
Yeah, very, very quickly, and then I'll answer questions. So this is our bar mitzvah boy, Itai. Can you see the bar mitzvah boy?
Yep.
Great. This is the son of the Israeli ambassador to Taiwan. Technically, he's not called an ambassador because there are no official diplomatic relations between Taiwan and Israel, or Taiwan and any other country for that matter. I laugh at it. It's a geopolitical situation that has to do with mainland China, obviously. But this is Itai and his amazing bar mitzvah, beautiful bar mitzvah, and so some photos of that. This is Mr. Schwartz, Tang, and myself. We received the Austrian Holocaust Memorial Award last year. So it was given by the parliament, the Austrian parliament, and by Austrian Service Abroad, which is sort of like a Peace Corps for Austrian youth, and they're dispatched around the world to Jewish centers and Holocaust education and memorial centers, including the Simon Wiesenthal Center, for example. And we established a relationship with them last year, and we have interns at the center from Austria, these young, college students or high school students from Austria. And we, in recognition of what essentially Mr. Schwartz and Tang did by building the center, they gave us this award. So a proud moment. That's the Israeli ambassador on the left, the Omer Caspian. On the right is the Austrian ambassador to Taiwan, giving us the award. A proud moment. And then just finally, I was going to play this video. I don't know if we have time. I'm going to play it, and then I'll pause and I'll take questions. Okay, just watch a quick video. Can you see this YouTube clip?
Have you shared sound when you shared? I don't know if we need sound. Okay.
All right, let's give it a try. And if you can't hear it, let me know. Okay, because the sound is essential. Can you hear this? Can you hear that?
No. Yeah. So unshare and then share again and check the box for sharing sound.
Okay, let me share sound. There you go.
Yeah.
You're an expert, you're a pro. Got it. I love it. I'm gonna try again.
For problematic reasons.
There we go.
But in Taiwan, the reality is totally different. I'm here in Taiwan to dig deeper and find out if Taiwan is the least anti-Semitic country on earth. Yalla, let's go. What do you think about Israel?
Israel people are smart and hardworking.
Israel, I think what I know is a very small country, and the population is also very small.
It's reputed for having a lot of intelligent people.
Very many smart people, and it's a rich country.
What do you think of Jews?
Jews, it's a religion.
I think Jews are like everyone in the world. Everyone is the same. So there's not much difference. Either you are Chinese or Jews or Taiwanese or English.
Jewish people, they're kind of rich, right?
I also sat down with Jeffrey Schwartz, the GCC founder from the Jewish Community Center in Taipei, to hear a bit more about the community.
Taiwan is definitely the least anti-Semitic country in the world. Our goal here at the Jewish Community Center is to keep it that way. Here at the Community Center is the first official public Jewish establishment that's open to the public. And part of it is the museum and all the cultural events that we have. And we invite and encourage the local community to come and understand us.
Here in Taipei, they have a full synagogue. A mikveh, a Jewish bookstore, and ancient Jewish artifacts in their museum. They even have a kosher restaurant. It may surprise you to learn also that Taiwan is a home to nearly 700 Jews, as well as the smallest Holocaust museum in the world. While Jewish communities in some countries are facing persecution for their identity, in Taiwan, the Jewish community is clearly thriving.
Okay, I'm going to stop the sharing. Okay, so that's it. So that's sort of a little bit of background and intro, and you can explore later. But I'm happy to take any questions you might have.
All right. We have two in the chat, and then we'll
Let me check. Okay.
All right. So we have threats
Yeah.
from mainland China affected the Jewish community in Taiwan?
No. I would say no. We deal with that off and on over the years, and particularly last summer when Representative Pelosi visited Taiwan, the mainland stepped up its threats, but it has not affected the Jewish community, as far as I know. So it's a real, it's a real real threat, something that we're aware of. But life goes on as normal. It's a wonderful, vibrant, fun place to be, and it really hasn't affected us. So that's my answer to that, without getting into too much detail. Does the JCC, from Steve Eisdorfer, hello, Steve. Another question, does the JCC have Chinese language programming? Yes. We had chair yoga led by Natang. So Mr. Schwartz's wife is a yoga expert and instructor. In addition to being a famous singer and actress, she taught how to do yoga exercises just by sitting in a chair. And she conducted that in Chinese. So our tours are conducted entirely in Chinese. Unless you request an English language tour, we could provide tours in English or in Mandarin Chinese. So yes, there's a lot of last year when we had our first Passover at the JCC, we compiled a Haggadah, the first ever Chinese English bilingual Haggadah. And we had translation, I was presenting, well, the rabbi, of course, led the Seder, but we also had some interpretation for the very first time in Chinese. So I hope that answers that question. Norberto is asking, did Jews immigrate to Taiwan before or during the Holocaust as it happened in mainland China? No. So the situation in Shanghai with the Jews fleeing Nazi Germany, my great uncle fled Berlin to Shanghai and was saved because of that. That whole situation did not happen at all in Taiwan. That was a very unique situation. There were Jews in Shanghai, in China, well before the Holocaust, well before World War II. But during the war, tens of thousands or thousands of them escaped Nazi Germany and were saved thanks to the granting of visas by a Chinese consular official and also a Japanese consular official. They saved thousands of thousands of Jews were saved by Chinese and Japanese, actually.
Do you know when the earliest Jews came to Taiwan? Do you know the earliest presence?
Oh, Taiwan. There has been one of our senior members of the community who's been here for over 50 some years. He wrote a history of the Jews in Taiwan for, I think, a publication by Cambridge University Press. Anyway, I think Jews have been here for a good 50, 60 years, at least. I mean, some of them came with the US military. There was a large military presence here when Taiwan had diplomatic relations with the US, which were broken off in 1979 because, Jimmy Carter and actually it started with Nixon. They decided to break relations with Taiwan and recognize mainland China. But Jews were here well before that with the military, but also as businessmen.
Okay, we have a question in the chat from Marcia.
Sure, Marcia. What did you think about the movie Shalom Taiwan? Did it accurately reflect the situation? Great question. I just rented it and watched it this morning. And I wanted to make sure that I watched it so I had, I could speak with some level of, knowledge and credibility. I thought it was very nice, and I'll tell you why, and I'll address your question around accuracy if I can. I'm sure you all have your own impressions of it. I would say it was actually really spot on in many ways. And I'll just try to get, highlight one or two features of it. One or two things that really struck me. One was it really highlighted how kind and welcoming the Taiwanese people are. And I saw that through the character of the hotel, that I don't even, not even quite a hotel, but that guy who brought the rabbi over to his home for dinner. That sort of, to me, represents the kind, open door, welcoming, friendly approach that you see here in Taiwan. That to me was actually quite accurate. Not everyone's like that, but I thought that was very representative. On the other hand, there were some stereotypes, sort of like the inscrutable, kind of mysterious, not very friendly Taiwanese or Chinese. That was a little bit more on the stereotypical side, but it's a movie. I get it. So that was fine. There was also, the sort of the chaos of the night, of the markets, the night markets, the day, the motorcycles, the sort of the street chaos. That's actually quite accurate. It's also it's misleading because it didn't show, modern gleaming skyscrapers, very modern, a lot of wealth here. So it didn't really show give a balanced picture of Taipei. It did show the countryside, sort of the green, beautiful countryside that Taiwan has outside of the city. So it did show, I think, a tea farm. It looked like a tea farm. That's somewhat accurate. It's a very industrial, country. So there are a lot of factories. It didn't really show any of that. So yeah, there were some aspects that I think were very spot on, very accurate, and others were not. What was very interesting was that it showed the Chabad Center that existed prior to the opening of the JCC. So that literally he was operating out of a rented apartment. That was the Chabad Center for 10 years, until last year, until he moved into, he and his family moved into the JCC. So I could answer any other questions if you want, to go into further detail, because there's a lot. I have a number of impressions from the movie. It was fun to watch.
How close to reality were like these Asian donors that he was seeking? I mean, are there rich Asians who would donate to an Argentinian synagogue? Or, well, actually, no one did.
I don't think they would donate to an Argentinian synagogue. That's not realistic at all. However, so I don't know,
Well, they chose not to, but they were singled out as potential donors.
Right. So, however, they have they have donated to the JCC here in Taiwan. So there is an enormous amount of wealth here. So I don't know if you know much about Taiwan, but Taiwan is the largest manufacturer of contract manufacturer of semiconductors. That's Taiwan Semiconductor, and all those semiconductors are go into your smartphone and your devices, your everything, your laptops. They make laptops here. It's sort of the high-tech island. That's where a lot of the wealth is generated, and it's very modern. It's one of the largest trading nations in the world. So there's a lot of wealth here, and a number of people, wealthy Taiwanese have donated. And of course, we're hoping that more will as well, because this center is is for the Taiwan community. So a lot of the premises, a lot of the story in the stories in the movie I didn't quite understand how they came up with that. But again, he took a lot of creative license. It's just a movie, and it was fun to watch.
Fish out of water.
Yeah.
Right. What other questions, folks? You want to take yourselves off of mute if you want?
Yeah. I don't want to have to be the only one talking. Please, I'd love to hear from you.
Well, I'll go ahead and ask my question.
Sure,
so,
Stanley.
Do the Jews of first of all, I enjoyed the movie. I thought it was fun to watch, and
It was
interesting what it had to say about family versus work, feminism, and so on. As Leslie pointed out, I thought what she wrote about was very apropos. So, do the Taiwanese Jews have much contact with the Jews on mainland China, or are these very separate communities?
right. I would call them Taiwan-based Jews, maybe not Taiwanese Jews. So there's a small handful of Taiwanese Jews, but for the most part, just Jews in Taiwan. Yes, we have a lot of connections to the Jews in China through our business connections and personal connections. So I lived in Shanghai for 5 years. And while I was there for the last year or so, while my family, this was back in 2010 to 2011, we became good friends with Rabbi Avraham Greenberg. And I haven't seen him for a decade, but he came to Taiwan 2 weeks ago for that conference of rabbis. So, it was like I hadn't, I just saw him last week, and it was just wonderful to see him. So there's a lot of connections because we go to back and forth between Taiwan and the mainland regularly. People like our offices are in Shanghai and Beijing, and I went there regularly prior to COVID. I haven't been back for 3 years. So I'm about to go back to China now that they've reopened China after it was closed until a couple months ago. So Hong Kong has a very sizable community. Shanghai's community used to be sizable, several thousand, but I was told by the rabbi that it has shrunk dramatically, which is quite, sad to hear, probably because of the COVID restrictions and people, the expat population just, left China. But there's still Jews there. It's a large community there that has shrunk, unfortunately. So yeah, but we have a lot of connections between the two communities, absolutely, through business connections, mainly personal connections. I don't know if that answered your question.
Yes, that did. And
Yeah.
I thought about Hong Kong, but you're saying that there are Jewish communities in Hong Kong, in Taiwan, of course, in mainland China, and
Right.
that there's some interaction
Yes.
among the three groups. Yeah.
Absolutely. So when I was living in Shanghai, I would come back to Taiwan because we had our home base here in Taiwan. We kept our home here, and I would see Rabbi Einhorn in Taiwan. And then when I go back to Shanghai, I would go to Rabbi Greenberg. And Rabbi Einhorn was not affiliated with Chabad in any way. He was Orthodox, but he was not Chabad affiliated. We would just see people. We continue to see people, come in and out, because they happen to be in Hong Kong for business or Shanghai for business, and they come to Taipei because it's nearby and they have, business connections here. And of course, tourists and students. Absolutely. A lot of students, they originally, a lot of them wanted to go to China. They were in China, and then they would come here to visit. But now, because of COVID, that went down, and now we're starting to see an uptick in students and tourists. So, tourists are coming back finally, because we only reopened Taiwan late last year, and mainland China only reopened in December or January. And Hong Kong finally dropped its mask requirement yesterday. So we've been behind the curve in terms of reopening to the world, but we're finally reopened, which is fantastic.
And is there a lot of intermarriage in
Yes.
Taiwan, given what you've described? Yeah.
Absolutely. No, that's absolutely part of the community, part of this, that's exactly correct. Yeah. So there's a lot of intermarriage, very little conversion. There's some conversion, but very little. But there's some. Rabbi Einhorn performed numerous conversions
So
over what's that?
Jeffrey Schwartz's wife is not Jewish.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
I believe I'm not able to answer that, but he so yeah, there's been a lot of conversion, and a lot of partners don't, a lot of wives or husbands don't, but yeah, it's very, very common. Intermarriage is very common.
All right, one or two last questions. We have do a question from Ruth.
Yeah, sure, Ruth. Yeah, do all the Jews in Taiwan live in Taipei? No, there are a handful that are scattered. Most do. Taipei is the largest city, and then there's some Jews scattered, in other cities throughout Taiwan. But I would say overwhelmingly we think they're in Taipei. Again, we haven't conducted a census, so we don't really know. But I would say at least 90% are probably. So that's generally true, mostly in Taipei. And I see.
And then one final. Yeah.
Yeah. And do you have any interactions with Israeli Jews? Oh, absolutely. So we have lots of Israelis as members and as people who live here for many, many years, or people coming in and out. Absolutely. A lot of interactions with Israeli Jews.
All right. Well,
Hi, my name is Norberto Lenkov. I'm born in Argentina. I lived there for 40-something years. So I have some comments and a question on what people thought about this Argentine rabbi borrowing $150,000 to build a synagogue. I'm telling you that it's a lot of money. Of course, it's typically the impulsive gestures or way that sometimes business are being carried out in Argentina, where you expect to build, castles out of sand, and then, of course, everything disappears. So I don't know what people thought about what was depicted in the movie.
Anybody want to chime in on that? On a rabbi without projects is not a rabbi. What was the saying? A rabbi without debts is a rabbi without projects. That was his rationale.
That was funny. Yes.
Yes, Tova.
Could I, do you have a moil? I know it's a silly question, but
Not,
is it the rabbi also the moil?
no. So not a silly question. Very valid question. The quick answer is no, he's not. And we have to import them from a moil from Hong Kong or from Australia or from Japan.
Oh.
And so, it takes a little bit of extra effort and some phone calls, but we do not have one here. And we have had that request. Even last year, we had, one or two, babies, baby boys. So yeah, it's a very good question. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, Glenn, and for spending time with us and giving us the tour. Internet applause. And thank you all. And thank you all for sponsoring and for attending and for making the film series a success. And thank you for bringing us to a successful close. Have a good day. Have a good morning, Glenn.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all. I appreciate it. The attention and the applause, and have a good evening. And thank you, Udi, for putting this together. Fantastic program. Very well done. Thank you.